welcome to Dear Romance Writer, where three writers who always deliver happily ever afters offer questionable advice for all of your relationship, work, and life problems. I'm Zio Axelrod.
I'm Avery Flynn.
And I'm Roan Parrish. We've got a great show for you today with the fabulous Christina Lauren. So tell us a little bit about yourselves.
And just in case you guys are listening and not watching, and you don't live in Romancelandia with the rest of us, Christina Lauren is actually two folks. So no, you're not hearing things. So go ahead and introduce yourself, you guys.
I am the Christina half of Christina Lauren.
I am the Lauren half, and we have been co-writers since 2009. We met writing fan fiction, and we decided at some point just to write a book together, like it would be that easy. And here we are.
You guys make it look easy. You make it look easy.
Yes, you do. All right, I have to know, which fan fiction world were you guys in?
So we met in Twilight, but we were both writing, and I had been writing fic since I was, probably 13, writing Days of Our Lives fan fiction.
Our lives. Oh my God, I love you.
And I wrote Buffy and Alias and Hunger Games, and I don't know. I just write fic for any show that I like. Crash Landing on You, like you name it. So
wow.
Twilight was my first fandom. I did not know how to write before I started writing fanfic. I didn't even know where the quotation marks went before, after the period or the comma. And the great thing about fic readers is they will tell you.
Oh yeah.
Yes, they will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fanfic learners unite! Yay!
I like to read. I've never actually written any. How about you, Roan?
I have,
because I know Zio has written.
I still write
fanfic.
And still does.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've never written any, although I started reading fan fiction, not realizing that's what I was doing once when I was in college. So as a child, I was a huge Lord of the Rings fan, like so huge, super nerd. And when I was in college in the early 2000s, that was the first time I had a computer, the first time I had like unfettered access to the internet. And I, like any good nerd, was Googling, like backstory of certain Lord of the Rings characters, like you do on a Saturday night. And I came across this like whole website of stories, and I was like, wait, there are other published stories in the Lord of the Rings world, and I haven't read them. What is happening? And I clicked on one, and I was like,
I don't think Legolas and Gimli did that in canon.
This is basically my
yes, they did.
Story,
don't you be a Gimli hater.
That was exactly what it was. Is I opened it up, and like within the first paragraph, I was like, this is gay as fuck. What? First of all, this is amazing.
I miss all this subtext.
Second of all, yes.
Subtext is no longer subtext
like,
in fanfic. It's all on the surface.
It's all text.
No. And I was like, at first I was impressed because I was like, I think Tolkien, he was like a pretty religious Catholic. I think maybe not super liberal. And then I quickly realized what was going on. And so I didn't know that fan fiction was a thing at all. All I knew was that I had a secret website that I went to sometimes to read stories about Lord of the Rings. And that I didn't tell anyone about it because I didn't actually know what I had stumbled on. So that is my basically like
secret gay Lord of the Rings website that you visited to be happy.
That's like every Lord of the Rings website.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Everyone should have that secret website. I think that's a good one. Of all the secret websites that I could find on my kids' browser history, that would be the one that I would appreciate most.
Yeah. I'd be like, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I've since read other fan fiction once I like learned what it is, and there are lots that I enjoy, but the beginnings of it were like a mystery even to myself.
Yeah, I didn't know it existed either until I like rewrote an episode of Buffy that pissed me off.
Yeah.
And then I went online to like find out more about the show that I hadn't been watching really. And then I stumbled upon like Live Journal's Buffy fandom, which
that
was a huge fandom.
Oh,
that
man,
was fun.
Yeah. We were
probably
that's
actually
like,
how it
in there together and didn't know.
Yeah, I know, right? That's how I got into Twilight fan fiction, is I read the books almost like, vampires don't sparkle. And then I like got to the last one and I was like, I so wanted them to bang much more definitively that I was like, I shall write this book myself. So
I didn't read any of the Twilight books, but I watched the first Twilight movie like wine drunk by myself in my living room, because it was while Jack was deployed and my kids all went to bed at like 7:00 at night. It was the early part of that. And so I'm wine tipsy, sitting on my couch, and we got to that point with the big glitter reveal. I fell off my couch. I laughed so hard. It was like the best laugh that I'd had in like 8 months. When you have 3 kids and one of them's a newborn and your husband's deployed, laughs tend to come few and far
so did the
between.
fandom.
I
believe me.
appreciate
We
that.
all did.
I appreciated that so incredibly much. That was, I loved it. That was funny.
There are a lot of writers that came out of Twilight fandom.
Oh yeah, so many.
Buffy too, actually.
Yeah.
And Harry Potter.
And Harry Potter, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess we should get on to the questionable advice giving part of this podcast.
Absolutely.
We have a really good letter for this episode. And it's actually from our email. We got a letter.
Yay! Thank you for sending out a letter.
Thank you.
We're sorry your life is trash right now, but we appreciate your letter.
This is from Amanda, and Amanda says, "Dear romance writer, I'm 32 and have yet to experience passion or attraction to another person. I'm wondering if it's a lost cause at this point. I feel my heart skip a beat when I read and watch chemistry on TV. My parents have a fondness for each other and are still married, 32 years and counting. My sister likes her husband mostly. Both make me feel like they settled or fell into these relationships and just never tried to find more. Do you believe in HEA actually exists in the world? Am I holding out for something that doesn't exist? Signed, Hopeless Romantic."
Oh, Amanda. Hugs.
So I love this letter, and I'll just for framing, I'll start hit the ground running. I love this letter so much because I feel like there's so much discussion recently. It's happened before, but it's like recurred recently, of this idea that like romance novels set people up for unrealistic expectations, and I feel like usually the way the discourse goes is in a pretty like heteronormative way, where it's like woman who reads lots of romance novels actually wants to be treated halfway decently. Man that she goes on a date with is like, well, I hear you're a romance fan, so of course you expect things like decency and pleasure, and obviously you deserve neither of them. That seems like that's the most recent iteration that I've seen. So I love this question because it seems like it's someone who's like questioning it themselves and being like, okay, but wait, have I drunk the Kool-Aid in some way? And I want to start by definitively saying, like, happily ever afters 100% exist. In my opinion, they don't always look like what we expect. But even if they don't exist, that's no reason not to still go after one with every single fiber of your being, in my opinion.
And they might not look like a happily ever after every second of your life moving forward.
Right.
I mean, I am very happily married. I cannot imagine being married to anyone but my husband. And there are days where I'm like, I wouldn't mind if he lived next door, but this is,
you'd still let him stay next door. That is,
I would. He could still help our kid with math homework. That would be fine. But like, I adore him and he is absolutely my HEA. And so I think sometimes, we have this expectation that once the book ends, those characters just are like bantering and laughing and having hot sex every single day for the rest of their lives. That piece is unrealistic because life throws curveballs that you have to deal with. And sometimes you're stressed. So.
And we don't really write about those parts. I mean, we woke up and we were very, very respectful to each other. Does not really make for a page turning read.
Yes.
So, but also, I think they said they were 32. 32 is young.
32 is young.
We like live in this world where we're like, they're 40 and they look so young. And it's like 40 is not that old. Like 32 is young. You have tons of time. I have a friend who's just turned 34 and is a virgin and has never been like in a serious relationship before. And part of it is because she just doesn't really like put herself in places where those things might happen. Like you might not find somebody if you're just at home every night, not doing anything to meet people. So maybe look at, the things you're doing and who you're with and, but absolutely HEAs, exist. But like Lo said, it just might not look like what you think it does.
Yeah, like even the two examples that she gave, they might be HEAs. I mean, maybe have a conversation with your sister about her relationships and say, hey, is this what you thought it was going to be? And you might get some insight into, yeah, it's not rainbows and puppies all the time, but I can't see like Liz said, I can't see my life any other way. Like, this is my person. And so HEA may, like you said, look different than what you've imagined, but that doesn't mean that the grand romantic gestures that we read about and write about don't exist. They do. They just don't happen every single day for a multi-decade
God, could you imagine how exhausting that would be?
I know.
And expensive.
Expensive, exhausting.
You see the flower truck, rolling by your house. You're like, go away.
I know.
No more boxes left. I don't know where to put these.
Yeah. I would like a couple of things to point out. Number one, I think sometimes, especially when you're in close relationships, whether it's like your friends or like a sister relationship or something like that, sometimes you are the vent. Mm-hmm. So it may be that and somebody else's relationship doesn't look like that much of an HEA to you simply because you're the one that basically is there to listen to them vent.
Yeah. Especially if you're single and they don't want to be like, here's my amazing relationship all the time. Right? Yes,
exactly. So it could be a little of that. So again, Roan is the queen of saying this, communicate. So yeah, talk and ask, like Zio said. I think that was a really great idea. The other thing that about this letter that I think is worth talking about is, Amanda says that she has not been really physically attracted to somebody, or in a relationship and all of those. And I think that is, but that, she gets, the heart pitter patters and all that stuff from reading romance. And I think that sometimes what gets missed is that, as sexuality is such a complete spectrum, right? And there are spectrums within spectrums. It's like sexuality is an onion. Okay. It just smells good.
The sexiest of vegetables, yes, really.
Yeah, really it is. And it may be that you're somewhere or that Amanda is somewhere on that ACE spectrum, and you can be within that spectrum and maybe enjoy and get the heart pitter pats and all that stuff from reading books, but not in real life. It could be a demisexual situation where you have to be emotionally attached to somebody before you feel that. And like Christina said, if you, are not putting yourself out there or not in situations where you interact with a bunch of people, it can be hard to make those emotional connections to even get to that place where you might be sexually attracted to somebody. So, that's something, maybe at least to look into, and for Amanda to read about a little bit too, is to say, hey, am I somewhere here within this spectrum? And is that me, or is it just not me at all? Is it just I'm surrounded by losers and assholes, which, that can happen too.
I think though, if you're talking about a situation where you are identifying with the demisexual descriptions and you do need that emotional connection, just to loop back to the age when you're 32, you're not in school usually anymore. Sometimes you are. I don't know her situation specifically. And it is harder to meet people because you're not necessarily in these same kinds of communities where people are like sharing interests and whatnot. And so, what I have told a couple of my friends recently who are single and trying to figure out ways to date is like, join clubs, do things locally, join a rec sports team if you do that, join a book club, find some community activities where you can meet people that you have things in common with, because if you do need that emotional connection first, that's a really good way to connect with somebody and to find a way into a relationship that might turn into more. And if it doesn't, that's still fine, because then you're just making friends who have the same interests.
Yeah. Well, and our society also tends to put like big expectations on certain ages. So like by 30, you're supposed to have all of your shit together. You're supposed to have a house and a fence and maybe a kid or a dog, and definitely a significant other and all of this stuff. And it doesn't work like that, So sometimes we take on those expectations that are attached to a number that don't really mean squat.
It's true. And I actually think that's those societal expectations that can sometimes lead to what might be going on with her parents or her sister, because like she could be right that they settled. And I actually think a lot of people do. And one of the things that makes me sadder than almost anything is to see amazing, cool people who felt that pressure and then settle for people who don't deserve them. And it happens for a million reasons: societal pressure, past abuse that comparatively makes someone look great just because they're nice to you, um, a lack of self-confidence, so that anyone who likes you, you think like, well, I better shoot my shot or I might miss out on it. Like there are a million reasons why people end up with sucky partners who are not good enough for them, and they're like too scared or comfortable or whatever
The
to
fear of
leave.
being alone is a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. And so if your parents and your sister letter writer have just settled, and you can see like it looks like they like each other mostly, but it's not a great passion. Like there are people who care more about having a partner, even if it's just sort of so or like friendly but not passionate. They care more about that than about having to be alone. And then they prefer it. And then there are some people, and I definitely fall into this category, who like, I would rather be alone my entire life than have to spend time with someone intimately who I just feel so about, which is why I was single for so long. Is I was kind of
This
like,
explains why you don't come visit me.
She comes to visit me though.
Yeah, she comes to see Zio. I don't care if you guys are in the same city and I'm, hours away.
Oh, that's nice being in the same city.
it's
Yeah.
so nice.
Aren't you jealous? I'm very jealous.
But yeah, I feel like that is a thing sometimes, is like figuring out for yourself, are you someone who what you want most is like a passionate, hugely loving, not perfect, but like that romance HEA, is that what you're going for, and you don't want to settle for anything else, and you're okay with like playing the field or being by yourself or having close friends and family but not a partner until you find that person? Or do you feel like you really want someone to share those things with, and you're willing to kind of like settle for less than that in order to have a partner? And it's not like one of those is good and bad or one is bad. It's like for each individual person, that is a calculus that you do differently. And I think it's really valuable to know your own calculus, because then you'll approach any potential partner with like, what I'm looking for is someone who blows my mind with desire and delight, or what I'm looking for is like someone pretty chill who I could get along with, who I can go on vacation with or whatever,
Yeah.
which
Did
is
you
all
guys not say before we started recording that you were looking for a book title? I think
There you
Desire
go,
and
Desire
Delight.
and
I just
Delight.
want to throw it out there. I'm picturing a cupcake bakery, and yeah, Desire
Next to a
and
sex
Delight.
shop.
Yes.
One-stop
The
shopping.
double
And then by the end, they
So
knock
they
the
get
wall
their
down
mail
between
mixed
them,
up.
and then oh yeah, they get their mail mixed up.
They get their mail mixed up. Oh my goodness.
I think the bottom line with this letter is that no, Amanda, it is not a lost cause.
No.
There's so much hope in the world, and you'll find yourself, you'll find your person or your people, you'll find it. Don't worry. But
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it's something you want, put yourself out there.
mm-hmm.
You know,
But one of my favorite things Rowan's ever said on the podcast, a couple times, I think we had it. She says, date yourself. Like, take yourself out on a date, treat yourself, find out what you like, what turns you on, what doesn't. It's important.
Yeah. So there's this YouTuber who I am super obsessed with. It's like she's a farmsteader, and the account is called Roots and Refuge, but the gardener is Jess. Avery's laughing at me because I love gardening so much. But she has this saying that I think is so beautiful and kind of applies here. She always says, turn your waiting room into a classroom. So like, if you can't have the thing yet,
that is good.
Ultimate desire, don't just like waste your life until you get there. Figure out like, what are the things that you can figure out before you have that ultimate dream, so that you're ready for it when it comes. And I know it seems weird to think of like teaching yourself things about how you want to date. Like that seems like a strange thing, but I feel like the dating yourself is like, when you go on a date with, like, say there is out there the perfect HEA partner for you, like your happily ever after. If you go on a date with that person, will you recognize them? Like, will you even know? Or have you not actually done the work yet to know yourself well enough, or to figure out like what your dream life is, or to know this is my perfect Sunday, or I'm not a cuddler while I sleep, or like, do you know those things about yourself enough that you can ask the right questions, have the right conversations to even like recognize that true love when it comes your way? And if not, dating yourself is a great way to figure it out. I think, like, what really moves you? What are you wooed by? What is cheesy? And if someone ever like sang a song that they wrote for you, you would melt and die, or if you love it. Or
I'm with Christina, both of us are like, ew, I don't like that.
Don't ever
That's like
sing to
Lo's
me.
nightmare.
It is. It's my actual nightmare.
Oh, well, I was gonna sing a song for you all, and I wrote for you, but now I feel,
She's like, now I'm just putting it away, never mind.
No, just don't ever do it. Don't ever pull it out like in a restaurant over dinner.
Like,
and
yeah, you
surprise
somebody
me.
grabbing
No
a
flash
mic at
mobs
a
for you?
wedding or something
Oh my-
would
oh
just
my
make
God.
Lo.
oh gosh, no flash mobs. Okay, no flash mobs. Okay.
Oh my goodness. So Amanda, thank you so much for sending in your letter. We appreciate it. We are all rooting for that HEA for you.
Yes.
And I don't think any of us think that HEAs are a bunch of hooey.
Nope.
No, well,
Or
no.
speak up now or forever hold your peace.
No, even if your happily ever after is ultimately with yourself, the pursuit of it is never a waste of time.
Plus, if
Well
you're
said.
pursuing it, like Lauren said, you'll be getting out of your house and doing stuff and it won't feel as pressurized,
Mhm.
you know, and all of that good stuff. So,
Yep.
yeah. So we are introducing a new part of the podcast. We're changing up our format just a little bit. We are including a little chat thing where we get to talk to our guests and each other about, you know, just sort of something out there. And all of us are currently in relationships, but I thought it would be kind of fun to talk a little bit because obviously Christina and Lauren have been together since 2009 and co-writing, which I'm sure always goes perfectly. And everyone
Never have any
says
problems, no arguments.
there's never communication error. They agree on everything. Their writing is, you know, unicorn farts and clouds. So it's beautiful. So I want to talk about productive fighting, because I saw something the other day and it was an article, and I'm trying to remember where it was. I think it was in the Atlantic, and maybe it was the New York Times. I don't remember. Anyways, I promise it's real. It exists. And they were talking about the difference between going to bed mad, you know, the old advice, you know, with your partner, your significant other, somebody you work with, whoever it is, never go to bed mad. And this was saying that advice is a bunch of shit, you know, and that what it is saying is what it was recommending was to schedule several times a year. Roan, you're going to be so happy. Schedule several times a year, basically a relationship review. I knew you would be happy. So it was
It
using
sounds
this-
like hell to me.
yeah. So it was using the wife. And so when the husband would do something that would drive her nuts, she had like a little notebook and she wrote it
gosh.
down. And
Oh, I
And
don't know
so-
if I agree with that.
so basically what it was is
On
it
March
took the
3rd.
pressure off the person feeling like they were being attacked all the time, and they were emotionally prepared to go into a conversation about, hey, here's what's going on, you know, can we change this? Can we do that? So I want to know how you all productively fight with each other, because I don't know that I could do that, because I would want shit fixed right away. So
That sounds like like,
I'm not patient
imagine
enough
somebody
for a
whipping
couple
out
of
a
times.
notebook and just being like, on March 3rd, you did this. And then on
Yeah.
June 1st, you did this. I'd be like,
That would be horrible to me.
I mean, I think that's actually the opposite of what I shouldn't have cheered. I silently cheered for anyone
take it
who's
back.
not
She
watching.
likes
I
the
Well-
scheduled communications.
Yes, I love a scheduled communication that takes the pressure off, but I feel like that's sort of the opposite of it, because it's like it's what's the word, artificially forcing you to sublimate any anger,
Or to
Is
come
it-
up with things to talk about that you might not really be that invested in.
yeah. It's so weird to not get something dealt with, or have someone say something that makes you mad, and instead of saying, hey, I didn't love that, you're like,
Wait until
It's
August
resentment.
1st. Like, this is so weird.
Okay, so how do you guys
It turns
do
into
it?
a burn book.
So it will not surprise you to know that the question, Christine, I get asked the most is, do we fight? And
Is it really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
People always, I think people love the idea of us just like secretly having this friction that isn't visible from the surface. And
Okay.
the boring answer is it's probably the healthiest relationship of my life. Like, we fight like you would with a spouse or a sister or a best friend, but it's very rarely about anything having to do with the books, and it doesn't ever stick. I mean, part of that is because we do talk all the time, and we know each other so well at this point that if she's irritated, I can read it in a text, even if her answer is just okay. Even if she replies with just an okay, I'm like, oh, she's pissed. And
You're like,
so,
oh hell.
and so we just fix it, because the thing is, there's no individual ego here. I don't need to be right. She doesn't need to be right. Christina Lauren has to get it right. Right.
Mhm.
So like, it doesn't make sense for us to be like petty or punitive about things, because that's not productive at all for our working relationship or the fact that we're best friends. So our answer is actually really boring. We just talk all the time.
I don't think that's boring at all. I
No.
think that's actually really hard to do and easy to push off, you know.
I hate
say
feelings.
I don't want to make a big deal out of that, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually really helpful.
Yeah, Lo was raised by therapists, and I was absolutely not. And so whenever things get like emotional, I'm a little bit like, I'm like really
you feel it.
insecure.
But you do it is the thing, you do the work. I think that's what matters, is like, you don't have to like it. Nobody likes going to therapy at first. You know what I mean? Nobody likes having hard conversations at first, unless you're a narcissist. Narcissists really love therapy, but like, you know, it's hard to have
That would make sense.
conversations about things that are icky or don't feel good. And the thing is, we do it anyway. And I think
Yeah.
that that's the thing, is you just have to have those hard conversations. But
Well, and I think also it can be a little bit harder to do it sometimes. You know, it's easier to tell somebody off that you don't give a shit about. It's harder to have a hard conversation with somebody that you do care about, you know, and you have to worry, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings, but I also want to, you know, do what needs to be done and have the conversation that needs to be had and all of that.
Or also,
So,
I don't
all
wanna
right,
let them know
Roan and
that they
Zia,
hurt my
what do you
feelings.
guys do?
Well, it's also like, I don't want to let them know that they hurt my feelings too. So I'm just
Yeah.
gonna say
a little
okay, and then bury it, and then, you know, fester. No, I like the idea. I love Rowan's idea of scheduling check-ins. And Sela, you guys don't know, but like, we've had a couple of conversations about this where Rowan said, like, you know, make a date night, or it doesn't have to be like a special occasion, but like make a time where you sit down and go, so hey, you know, are you cool? Everything's good. Like, how are we? I love this. I don't particularly like that. Just sort of like when no one's emotional and high tempered, so that there's just a nice, easy conversation. And I love that idea more than keeping a notebook.
The burn book. I'm going to call that the burn
The
book.
burn
from now
book.
on.
That's exactly what
I'm
it's like
half
setting up for a
tempted to
roast.
keep one.
It's like
I think it would just make me laugh.
it's like having a quarterly roast of each other. Like, you know, like, can you imagine?
But also you
Oh,
get
this
sometimes you
guy.
have like sometimes you have things that bug you in the moment, and you might write it down, and then you would later go through it and be like, this doesn't matter at all. So
Yeah,
That
yeah.
part's true.
That's true.
that part's
Yeah,
true.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. We
Yeah.
I will say with Jack and I, what we tend to do, we don't fight very often for as much as we disagree about so many things. But the what we will do, because I have the inability to have upset conversations without crying, which drives me crazy, right? It's not a play. It's not gathering sympathy. It's just, honestly, it's like I'm an angry crier. I just am. And so, yeah, I hate it. We have in the past couple of times that something has happened, and I love Jack to death. We've been married for 21 years. But you know, I married Irish is what I say. So he is not super communicative. He's not super touchy-feely, which is awesome, because I like that, because I'm kind of like Christina. I'm like, ew, feelings. Ew. But we have communicated via iCloud notes. So
Listen,
we
whatever
have-
works for every couple.
yeah. So we have one that's called communication, and it's a shared note. And I always start them because it's always me. I'm not gonna lie. It's always me. So I'll be like, this hurt my feelings, and here's why. And this is what I would prefer if you did instead. And then like 5 minutes later, I'll hear clomp, clomp, clomp down the hall, and he like pokes his head in my office, and he's like, I didn't mean that at all. I'm sorry. That's like the end of it. Meanwhile, I've already divorced him 4 times in my head and lived a whole life as a single woman and, you know, all of these things. So yes, so I highly recommend before you divorce your husband in your head or stop being friends with somebody to, send a letter or an email or a text if it's easier.
I love that. I mean, I think that's so legitimate that sometimes the manifestation of emotion doesn't match the internal feeling, but we're so attuned to watching someone's face and like how someone's acting that we have a hard time hearing what they're saying. It's why like I really don't like being yelled at. And so even if someone's making a valid point, if they're yelling it at me, I completely shut down and I'm not listening. And I have actually said like to my dad as a teenager, I am not hearing anything you're saying. So you can either stop yelling it at me or I'm like not hearing it. And because I just like can't, I don't like it. But I think that like if you're an angry crier or whatever version of that, to be able to divorce the look of the feeling from like the actual thing is so super useful. I feel like that's a great hack.
Yeah.
And I loved what you said so much, Lauren, about that like you don't have to be right and Christina doesn't have to be right, but Christina Lauren has to be right. And I think that's like such a beautiful way to describe a partnership. And I feel I think like that's the ideal that I would like about fighting with my girlfriend is like, I don't want to care about being right and I don't want her to care about being right. I want us to have like the outcome that is right.
Right.
And I think that's such a beautiful reminder that in a fight, ego is almost always detrimental if it's personal, whereas like your shared goals as a couple, as a team, as a group, whatever, are almost always like positive. And
but you also know in saying that you don't want to be in a relationship with somebody that you can't fight with, right? So like we don't like to fight. None of us like to fight, right? But you also don't want to be in a relationship with someone that you're not safe fighting with or safe disagreeing with, because if, you know, Christina and I never argued about anything, that would mean that one of us, maybe both of us, were always giving in or didn't truly believe in what it was we were doing.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you
right?
accept that you are going to fight with a significant other and that you are going to have to work through hard times, it almost makes it easier because it's like, okay, this is a normal process for us. We are not broken in this moment. We just have to talk it through and figure out like how we can both feel okay.
And it's normal. It's so normal. You can love somebody and love them to death and still occasionally want to murder them.
Oh,
it's
for
just
sure.
don't
Christina
follow
wants
through
to kill
on
me
it
all the time. I'm super neurotic. Like I'm a lot to take, and she's just very laid back.
Lo and I are very, very different. Lo likes things scheduled and planned and likes to sort of be in charge, and I don't want any of those things. And so it might seem like maybe I'm the most like easygoing, but then on that same note, there are times she'll go, "What do you want to eat?" And I'll go, "I don't care," and she hates that. So it's like those things that like make our relationship work are sometimes the things that we have to be like, when I ask you what you want to eat, I want you to tell me. Which is funny because my daughter, she's almost 21 and she's almost the same way I am in that way. And I've said the same things to her that Lo says to me. Honey, when I ask you what you want, I'm asking because I want to know.
I want to know. That's like when you say, "Hey, I'm going to the grocery store. What do you want?" "Oh, the usual." No.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been
that
married.
Would go in my burn book.
Yeah.
I've been married for 27 years and Lo and I communicate way better than me and my husband because I think we put just as much work into our friendship as we do our business. And I don't think there are many people that can say that about like their relationship, whatever it may be.
It was also the case that our business relationship sort of preceded the friendship, not entirely, like they kind of grew up together.
So we didn't know each other very well when we started.
We knew each other for like 2 weeks when we started writing together.
So you were really just like, this could be fun.
You guys were insta love.
Well, we were, and also we were just super lucky that it ended up being so complimentary. I mean, it took a ton of work. Like we've worked very hard on our relationship. But we're also just really lucky that we were different in the right ways.
Love it.
Co-writers AGA.
I know
Yeah.
we are. Aw.
Oh, well, gosh, Christina and Lauren, thank you so much for hanging out with us and giving advice. We really loved having you. And thank you, of course, to everyone listening. Remember to send in your letters, and we can't wait to give you some questionable advice from our trio of happily ever after enthusiasts. So, Christina Lauren, do you want to tell everyone where they can find
Wait,
you?
where's my? I
What
have my
book is coming out next for
my
you?
latest one. I'm holding it up to the camera.
Yay.
My arc of so many
Ooh.
queens. Love this
Thank
book
you
so
so
much.
much for
Love this
having
book
us.
so
This was really fun. You have a great dynamic. Yeah, so Soulmate Equation came out in May, and
So
you
good.
can get that anywhere. And the
Paperback
one that I would
is out 2/22/22.
that's right.
Oh
Our
yeah,
paperback
that's
is
such a
coming out in
great
February.
date for a release.
I know. And if you guys want a good holiday read, we have In the Holidays, which came out last October, and so we're getting cozy and fall ready. So that might be a good one to pick up now.
Now the stores will be open.
Yes.
Yeah.
They weren't then.
Oh, honey,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
It's fun.
That's right.
And we have a book coming out in May. That's like a play on Romancing the Stone, like meets The Hangover meets like City Slickers,
Oh
sort
yes.
of.
Oh
But
my gosh.
we don't have a
Oh, I
title,
cannot wait.
So,
so
wait for that.
hopefully.
Yeah.
And you can
Wait,
find
what
us at
was the
Christina-
book title we came up for you guys? What?
Yeah.
Oh,
Something
Desire and Delight.
There you go. See, I'm
There you
telling
go.
you.
Romancing the Bone.
Oh my God.
How did we not think of that one?
I would like to
Oh
apologize
my God.
to everyone who listens to our podcast for that pun. Thank you.
I think that's worthwhile. And I
Roan will be
think
here all
every
night.
book PR marketing person just went, ugh.
That's amazing.
That
And
was
on that
Readers
worthwhile.
went,
note-
yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could see that on a cover somewhere.
know.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Yes. What's really scary though is it would be like a cozy mystery and it would be
Yeah.
a dog,
And
literally.
it would be
with a
so
bone.
it would be like totally like ironic.
Somebody
only
works in a
the dog way.
museum with like a T-Rex.
Yes. Yes. There you go. So cozy mystery writer. It is all yours.
You can have it. We won't be able to use it, sadly.
So where
Thank
can
you
we
guys.
find you? Where can we
Yeah.
find you before you go? Where can we find
Oh
you?
yeah, we're at Christina Lauren on Twitter and Instagram, and Christina Lauren Books on Facebook. We have a group on Facebook that's CeeLo and Friends. It's a really fun place.
It is. It is.
Thank you
Awesome.
guys so much. We really,
you.
really appreciate it.
This was a lot of fun.
So good to
Thanks,
see
you guys.
Thank you so much for subscribing to Dear Romance Writer. Remember to keep sending in those letters at dearromancewriter.com. We can't wait to tell you what to do. Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love, frolic.media/podcasts.